Nebraska, it's the Average Joe Sports Show. This is the place for Husker sports with the biggest names, the best interviews, and all the inside scoops.
I got a front row seat with a big tub of buttered popcorn and a greasy half-live chicken leg.
Now, here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt and Elijah Herbel.
Welcome to it. Weekend edition is here with the Average Joe Sports Show, and find us every Saturday on YouTube. Like and subscribe. We have Mark Kranak. He is trucking, and Kranak making his trip back home from Kansas City. Elijah Herbel alive and well after golf and a whirlwind of road shows with the Average Joe. Chris Schmidt, good to have you. Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman from the Ozarks shortly, and then Brandon Vogel from Counter Reed live from Nashville. Checking in a bit. We'll check in with the Iron Horse, the great Gary Sharp coming up. Kranak, Elijah, fellas, it feels like we just saw each other in the Real Red Reaction postgame show. How we feeling, Kranak? How's your experience? Tell us what you're up to this morning.
Well, we're cruising back. I'm on I-29 North right now, trying to make our way back to the metro. That's a 2031's walkthrough. We'll be a little late for it. Coach understands that, but it's a little bit. It's better. It's been a long time since I have made a pilgrimage to a Nebraska game, and then having left with a W. I don't even remember the last time it was. Like usually at this time, it's like, well, here it goes, and then we can just pick apart all the reasons why Nebraska is going to fail us once again. But we're not.
Kranak, do we have you? No.
Oh, thought you
now
did.
Now we got you back. Cliffhanger moment. That's right. Think about this, fellas. You go into the weekend, the holiday weekend, the glory-filled weekend of college football beginnings, and you are one of those 1-0 teams. You are one of those teams that, all right, there's a lot to fix, but it's better than the alternative, and too many times you've felt the alternative. We say hi to the Pride of Fairbury, Bill Doleman, in the back of a Marty Bird financed shed, apparently, on the patio. Bill, we got you?
Yeah, you got me, but I am man for man this morning because I am blinded by the light as the sun comes up over the Crystal Springs of Missouri, that being the Lake of the Ozarks. So okay. I've been trying to find the best possible position to do the show, but I'll just have to go with what I got.
Did you sleep outside? Have you left outside since we last talked to you?
You just got in. Let's not BS anybody.
It would not have been a bad idea to have slept outside, and I would have slept quite soundly, I might add, after watching Georgia Tech score a late touchdown to beat the 3.5. So, it was actually a really good night last night.
That was a bad Colorado favored by 3.5 was a bad line against that Georgia Tech team. I'll just say that one. I think I called that one. I'm not sure if it was on this show or on the morning hookup, but I called that one like 3 weeks ago. That was Georgia Tech's offense is really tough to prepare for, but that's an aside.
Well, as long as they hold on to the football, they are a tough offense. But they turned it over 3 times at 8 minutes. Obviously, first game issues that you can't hold on to the football. But you talk about a buzzkill in Boulder, and if Dion thought that town smells like weed after the second quarter, imagine what it smelled like last night at about midnight. So that was an enjoyable game to watch. Baylor Auburn not so much, but nevertheless. Interesting start to the college football season, and I heard your comment. Look, no matter how you want to paint the picture for Nebraska, it still comes out looking like a W. So I guess after the first weekend, or well, I shouldn't say the first weekend, the first few days, given what we've seen, Nebraska pretty much played par with everybody else, and who knows what we'll see today. I don't think it's been a great weekend of football so far.
No, and what you're seeing is the NCAA and their rules affect college football with 9 practices. There's been some programs that have been better than others at tackling. Nebraska was really good tackling in the secondary per se. I was looking at some of the Pro Football Focus grades, and I look at Riley Van Poppel's snap distribution compared to Elijah Judy, and I look at the grades, and then I look at the production of what Riley Van Poppel did, how much hell he raised, fellas, with his limited opportunity in comparison to, because what was he about at 20 snaps? Judy was 30 plus. Let me pull it up officially, but listen, there's game one, and then there's things that are or are not fixable. You are what you are. We don't know what Nebraska is yet because coaches stand on that, game one to game two jump, and in some instances, even week three is kind of where the A team will be for the rest of the season. Sparty, and three putts right on, has looked really good. They need to, or they should have.
Hey, I have a suggestion though. I really think that the NCAA, since it wants to limit tackling, let's just do away with it, because I think the word that I heard the most, the new word that I heard this football season during fall camp, was thudding. So let's just have thud football. So are you just thud? Because we have the flag football coming into the Olympics in 2028. So apparently the powers that be in the game of football wanted to move away from actual tackling and hitting. You just wear the stuff so that you look good. You got the gladiator helmet and the pads and the really tight outfits, and then you thud. And then the referees can determine where the thud occurred, and that's where they will mark the football, because that seems to be what the NCAA wants, is thudding. So let's call it thud football and flag football in the Olympics. So no more tackling. You can't hit hard either. Right? Because
Does that mean Nebraska has to give them guys? Does that mean we get guys that know how to juke? Have to be some.
We are losing you, bud. You're a little very, very scratchy.
I thought he was talking in Morse code.
Maybe I'll check back in closer to the metro.
Yeah. Check back in. Thank you. We love you, Kranek. Thank you for the effort. We love Brandon Vogel's effort as he is in Nashville. Counterread.com. Vogue's a lot to get into. Nebraska is a winner for this Labor Day weekend, as they are 1-0. Some teams will not be, my friend. How's Nashville? How are you, dude?
Is that the front porch of a Cracker Barrel?
pretty close. I parlayed every Thursday and Friday night game on the money line and hit all of those. So I bought this vacation home this morning. So testing it out here on the front porch.
Are there biscuits in the oven?
No, that was earlier. We've already the kids get up early, so we had breakfast about 5:30 because it's Central Time. It's 6:30 their time.
Okay.
Wow,
I love it. Vogues, that looks pretty great.
It is pretty great. Not gonna lie, excited to go see some volleyball tomorrow. Debating whether it's worth it for Vanderbilt, Charleston Southern tonight, but I'm kind of an addict, so I might end up hitting that one.
That's all good. Vogue's live in Nashville.
Schmidt, have you considered moving outside here? It's kind of a bit of a theme going on the bottom. I mean,
yeah,
it's a pretty nice morning out there.
I could. Maybe I will move in a minute. Vogues, let's get into Arrowhead and Nebraska. And what do you put in that was just game one category? What do you put in the fixable category for Nebraska football? As you're 2 days removed from a nail-biting win, I think that can really spark some momentum. I know Matt Rule did McAfee yesterday, and he was pretty matter of fact about how they need to just get a lot better. I was impressed with Nebraska's tackling for the most part. I thought they really emphasized that in the ball security. So that was important, clearly, in that tight of a ball game. But where are you at right now, moving forward with Nebraska? It feels good for Husker Nation to be 1-0.
Yeah, it absolutely does, and I think big picture, that's don't underestimate that. It's kind of the nature of the beast that, okay, you finally get some real information to go on, and it gets dissected, particularly playing on a Thursday, for an extra long amount of time. But SMU last year beat Nevada, a team that would go 3-9, by 7 to open the season. Ended up in the playoff. And I know there are other examples of that out there. So it's possible to just have a week one game where you're like, oh, well, I thought this team was that, and the one piece of evidence we have means they're not. And there are counter examples to that as well. But for the most part, it's a fascinating game to try and break down, because I think there were some continuation of trends from previous Nebraska teams that give you a little bit of pause. There were some very good things, and overall, if you try to sum it all up, like, Nebraska's 1-0 and everything's still on the table. So you'll take that away, and to be quite honest, like, Nebraska's got two games coming up at home to really polish things when you look at Akron and Houston Christian. So we'll see where they're at. We'll have a much better idea in 3 weeks. But in terms of concerns from the offseason, like the rush defense, I think is one of the top ones coming out of there. I think explosive offense remains one, and that's been a continuation from previous seasons. So there's a lot to dig into.
Brandon, what do you make of the game plan? Whenever we talked to you before the game on Thursday, you said, hey, if Brendan Sorsby has a big rushing game, the trend for Cincinnati is they lose the football game. You think Nebraska just saw that? You think Nebraska was listening to what you had to say and said, we're going to let Sorsby go?
What do you mean if? Of course they were listening to what he had to say.
Well, I honestly hope they weren't, because if they were, I'm available for consulting. Like, if we want to have discussion about that. No, it got pretty dicey there. I was joking on our counter read thread, because Sorsby hit exactly 40 yards on that touchdown run in the second quarter, or in the second half, and I was like, oh, Cincinnati's back in the game, but they just cursed themselves. And then he ran for almost 40 plus more yards. And I was like, well, maybe he didn't. Maybe they're going to break the streak here. But it's just a strange game. I was looking back at the box score this morning to kind of refresh. And when you have basically a 2-1 advantage, I think it was about 40-20 in terms of time of possession, you should win by more than one score. Like, that's just how it generally works. So I think what this game one showed to me is Nebraska still has a chance to be good. They very clearly have some issues and some weaknesses to try and shore up. But it's gonna be a white knuckle ride to wherever they get to. Like, I think that's kind of the proof of game one.
And one of the things, I rewatched the game in full last night, trying to get a better sense of things. And I walked away from my rewatch less impressed with Cincinnati's handoff rushing attack and more impressed with Sorsby. Like, I was looking at Sorsby and I'm like, man, is that a guy you got to think about making the switch to tight end and going and playing at the next level? Like, his ability from his size to be able to read the holes, read the defensive line, make a move and get upfield. Like, I was impressed with his athleticism. Throwing the football, not as much, but I had that question. I'm like, does he make a switch to tight end and go play at the next level? Because his athleticism with his size really impressed me. And I don't know. I shouldn't say I'm not concerned with the handoff rushing attack, because I still am. But I look at that and I go, how different does that game look if Nebraska is playing a quarterback that does not tuck it and run as much as Sorsby? I probably win that game by 14 points.
Yeah, those are all good questions. And to go back to that Sorsby rushing thing, it's not like I think Nebraska just decided, like, oh, we can live with him getting yards that way. But early on, those first two drives, like I think Cincinnati was over 7 yards a carry, and those weren't Sorsby drives. So you had some concerns, but Nebraska, to their credit, made some adjustments or just tackled a bit better, and kind of shored up against two guys who are pretty good running backs. So that was encouraging. The Sorsby piece of it is just he's good. Like, I think you're right, Elijah. He might be their Heinrich Harburg, a guy who's pretty dangerous. But what did Cincinnati average per pass attempt? Was it under 3 yards? Something close to
Right
that.
around
Like,
3.
It was like my GPA. So I mean,
I'm gonna have to look it up because I'll be interested, because that doesn't happen very often. That is unique in college football to average that few yards per pass attempt. And what does that mean? I mean, we know that Nebraska's secondary was probably the strength of their defense coming in. Was that a reflection of Cincinnati? Was it a reflection of Nebraska? And the answer is kind of always like it's a little bit of both.
I look at, and Doleman, you made this point yesterday, but Cincinnati's front 7-ish or 6 or whatever they were doing was pretty good. I really liked their linebackers, and of course the Godfather was as good as advertised. And I'm just trying to get the translation. What other Big Ten schools are like Cincinnati, or how much better are other Big Ten front sevens going to be against Nebraska's offense, and vice versa? I mean, Nebraska's offense could be and may be better moving forward as well. Offensive line, you got to settle in on that tackle spot. We know about the running back situation behind Emmett. What do you think of Emmett's capability? I mean, what's the max you can run him, catch him moving forward? I mean, at some point, and I just think of Amir, right? Think of all Amir was in 2014. He gets dinged against Purdue, and you're really got a hand tied behind your back with that Michigan State game. With Emmett, I mean, dude, he's been waiting on this his whole life. For whatever reason, with his football career, he's always had to continue to run uphill to get starter snaps. He is the best thing they've had in a long time, and he has this opportunity. But you don't want overuse, but you may have to.
There were a couple of times in the game where I was stunned that he was getting the carry after carry after carry. And he'd pick up, 4, 5, 6 yards, and then surely they're not going to hand the ball off to him a second or third time in a row.
4 in a row.
Right.
And then you're moving the ball. You've picked up about 20-plus yards. You're in Cincinnati territory. You got to shuffle someone else in, and then there's a negative, or there's a no gain, and it's 2nd and 10, and that's when things would stall. Is he have to go out to probably get an IV, and then he comes back in, and
that was one of the
points.
That was one of the hardest earned 100-yard games I've seen. Well, I've seen it in Nebraska in a long time because we haven't
Manhattan in '94.
Yeah, considering we haven't seen a whole lot of 100-yard games from a Nebraska running back, it used to be a routine. Sometimes you have 2 or 3 people running for 100 yards in a game for Nebraska, and now you might have 2 or 3 100-yard games all season long. But the way he fought for those rushing yards was really impressive, because he got so many carries after carry after carry, like you said, 4 or 5 in a row, and then somebody else, and then you go back to him again. And that was a man's game on Thursday night that he put together. So he earned it. Now, I don't think you're going to see a lot of Emmett Johnson in the next 2 days or next 2 games, because they got to figure out if it's going to be Nelson, if it's going to be Mosey, if it's going to be Williams getting some carries. Is Ives ever coming back? But I think that there's going to be much more committee opportunities in the next 2 games to figure out who that number 2 back really is going to be. And you cannot have games like that where Emmett Johnson is going to get 30-plus touches, or a third of your offense is going through him, to the end of the season. But Yeah, I've been a big Emmett Johnson fan since he came on campus, and I'm glad they finally recognized what we've been saying on the show for so long. And so, thank you very much for listening.
Bogues, what's the breaking point, or is there one?
Well, I think Thursday night felt like redlining it for Emmett Johnson already, because I had the same impression you guys. It's like, oh, like, he just had a great run. Like it's not even time for a breather. And it was like, no. And in fact, we might roll out and throw the ball to him this time. Which in terms of like individual performances, like I think Emmett Johnson probably had the most impressive performance of week one for Nebraska. And I think Bill's right. Like they'll use these next two games to get some of those other guys touches, get them some looks, get them some reps. But it's nervy if that's your best bet and you're just gonna like, well, we're gonna run this thing until it quits. That's a pretty dangerous game to play. So Nebraska needs to come up with some additional solutions there. And to your earlier point, Chris, about that Cincinnati defensive line, like having watched them now more in depth, like I think that D line specifically is probably as good or better than most D lines Nebraska will face in Big Ten play. Like Michigan will be better, Penn State will be better, USC probably, and then beyond that, and Iowa. But beyond that, you get into there's still five other conference teams Nebraska plays. Like I wouldn't put those D lines ahead of what Nebraska faced against Cincinnati.
I think Corleone might be the best defensive lineman that you see up until maybe that Penn State game in November. Dude's legit. It's as simple as that. And he gave Nebraska some trouble on the inside, but you saw how it changed whenever he was out of the football game. So the question is did we overhype him and Nebraska just made him look good? I don't think so. I think he's just a guy that's that good on the inside. It was night and day whenever he was in versus whenever he was standing on the sideline.
Yep, he was as good as advertised. Really, that D line as a whole, which they played without three of those guys for a lot of last year. I'll be interested to see where Cincinnati goes. Like I was, as I was watching the game, I was like, if I were a Bearcat fan, I don't know how much I'd be enjoying the Scott Satterfield experience. Like to have Joe Royer, by all accounts, like a surefire NFL tight end, and for him to get, I think, 3 catches, I was just like, what are they doing here? Like,
Was that a Nebraska thing, Bud, or is that Cincinnati's ineptness?
I mean, it could. You got to give a little bit of credit to Nebraska there, and I think when you look at the passing yards overall, like there weren't a lot to be had, to be fair, but it just didn't seem like there was a ton of effort to get him the football and see if you've got a guy who's well regarded by NFL scouts, see what he can make happen.
And I thought it was interesting how Cincinnati's offense, really, whenever they dropped back to pass, it was one read, and if it's not there, Sorsby was tucking and running, which I'm not sure Nebraska's going to face many teams that are like that this season, maybe Iowa. But it was legitimately Sorsby drops back, 3 or 5 step drop. If the first read's not there, find a gap in the defensive line, tuck it and go. That was the game plan, it felt like, from a passing game point of view.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, honestly, that was one of the other like flag this for later pieces of it, because Dylan Raiola almost completed 80% of his passes. And I think when you add that to what Nebraska did over the Satterfield games, like we have established that they can play pitch and catch, and you can move the football that way. You got down to the red zone. I mentioned earlier the vast disparity in time of possession. And when Nebraska got down to the red zone, like I didn't feel like it had a ton of answers. So you'll take the completion percentage, you'll take the easy gains, but unlocking something beyond that, I think, is still a really big question for me, because I kind of felt similar when Nebraska had the football of like, are we getting through? Are we making the good reads and finding the best play to make? I think that first game showed me they found the first read to make, which Nebraska was okay at that a year ago. But in terms of a progression to year 2 at quarterback, I was hoping for a little bit more.
Game Dog and I are on the same wavelength here. 80% of his passes, yes, but less than 6 yards per attempt, and that's where I was going. There were a lot of safe throws. It wasn't go and throw. It was pitch and catch. It was who's the safe read. He was kind of locked in sometimes. There were times when he danced around and looked for the somebody to throw to, but given the defense, that shell defense, which is now the new term in for defense. 20 years ago or 30 years ago, it was cover 2. Everybody's cover 2. Now you got the shell game and all that. But yeah, 80% of safe throws for the most part. But you don't want him risking, especially in a tight game. But yeah, he should be able to play catch with guys 5 yards away. And a lot of those were to Emmett Johnson, had 5 catches in the game or something. So there weren't a lot of chances taken with a 5-star and some pretty quality receivers. I think Nebraska's got a quality receiving core. Even the 4th down play was a relatively safe throw for the most part. The receiver beat him, and you better make that throw.
Yeah. I mean, for the game preview I wrote on Thursday, I put that number at 8. And that was a little bit pie in the sky of if Dylan Rail is at 8 yards per attempt, then Nebraska's probably cruising, and you would feel good about them winning that game. So credit to Nebraska for winning that with drastically lower. But Dylan was at, I think, right around 6.5 a year ago, which ranked in the hundreds, towards the bottom of college football. And it's got to get higher. And you can say, well, they won, and they did. They executed their plan, and they found a way to win the football game, which can't be underestimated. But long term, it's just too hard to move the ball that way, because then it always comes down to the red zone and how good you can be there. And college football today, it's just I'll be writing about this for Monday in terms of this passing piece in particular. It's too hard if you don't have those big plays, and Nebraska hasn't for 2 full seasons of Matt Rule, and now 1 game of season 3.
What with Cincinnati's game plan? So
I don't even know what yards per play are. I don't even know.
Says first game, who needs yards per play anyways? Marcus Satterfield probably. Nebraska 2 field goals, 2 touchdowns. There you go. And in the red zone, you had the pop pass where you got to the 4th down and you made a really great play call. You had the fade route to Hunter. You also went fade route that was incomplete. And you went fade route because, you had a guy jump off sides that moved you back from the half-yard line. Otherwise, maybe you get a touchdown. It's just weird to think about where that game could have gone, because Nebraska felt really good, great control, up 13-3 at half. That it could have been a 17-3 spot at half, and then you flip it around to the second quarter. You go for it on 4th. It goes sideways on you. Since he's got a short 57-yard field, you had no answers. And then they said, we're just going to line up and run the football, and they got back in it. They made enough stops on those money downs in the second half, aside from the answer touchdown. I mean, Nebraska didn't do a whole lot offensively in the second half, and they were phenomenal on 3rd downs for probably 60% of the game. But when it got tight, Bogues, it was, just hang on for dear life.
Yeah, it was. I mean, 13-3 going into half, and Nebraska gets the ball coming out. So, you get a touchdown there, it's good night. And if you get a field goal on that drive, it's probably, here's your sleeping pills. You got a little bit more work to do, but, and Nebraska wasn't able to do that. And credit to Cincinnati, in terms of adjustments at halftime, they kind of pushed the Sorsby button, and it almost got them there. I just keep going back to, and like, I feel like I'm being really negative when that's not my ultimate perspective from that first game, because you're 1-0, and it's been a long time since Nebraska's done that with this sort of game for an opener. But it did feel a little bit like a missed opportunity. And in some ways, I don't think that's the worst thing. Like, it'd be nice to be Auburn this morning, where you're like, oh yeah, we went on the road and beat Baylor by 14 and controlled that game. But that can also be a false positive as well. So that's kind of the balance we're all trying to walk here, coming away from one game.
And by the way, the Auburn Baylor game was not as enjoyable as the Georgia Tech Colorado game
Right.
was, for the record, for me anyway, and my interest.
Very good. I was pretty impressed with Colorado there. I think they, Georgia Tech turned it over 3 times, but that was a good result for Colorado. If you're not a Colorado fan.
There are very few on this board and on this stream. Brandon Vogel with us from Counterread, counterread.com. Vogues, let's touch on a little bit of college football today, quite the triple header. And I know you're in Nashville gearing up. You saw Nebraska last night. You're going to see Nebraska tomorrow against Kentucky. I want to get your thought on Lee Corso, because before it is Ohio State, Texas time, and I know one network's doing the game, one isn't. You got the Sunshine Scooter, Fare Thee Well. And that just seems crazy that that show we all grew up with is going to have a drastic change. And I know they've made shifts, clearly. But with Corso, I remember when they came to Lincoln, and folks, maybe you were here for it too. I mean, the early era of game day, I think that was, Florida State and Notre Dame, 93. Is that the first game day setting? And then you fast forward, Nebraska was always a staple. I mean, I remember going to university and with the broadcasting college, we had half of our class would intern with game day, half of our class would intern with ABC Sports, either Musburger or Keith Jackson, and it was just pretty enriching. It was awesome. But you have Corso that's going to get one more final headgear pick, and the poor guy's had some health issues for sure, but he's kept on trucking.
Yeah, I mean, I think the best way I can put it is, and I've been watching game day for 20 plus years now. Like, I'm as excited for today's game day as I've been in quite a while. And, I know the show existed previous to that, Tim Brando, Craig James, etc. But like, today is the closing of basically the main chapter of that show. And it'll go on, and it's adjusted in the recent past as Corso has dealt with some of those issues. So I think we're well prepared for what it will be going forward. But it was just such a good idea, like, to have that kind of end of the show moment. And it was simple, and you put on the headgear, and this predated social media, but once you got into the social media age, like, if you couldn't watch game day, you'd at least go find that and see what that was, see which headgear Corso picked. So he's really instrumental to, I mean, I was in high school when that show started. So that entire length of time in terms of what college football has been. So I've been happy to see some of the things that have kind of ESPN's already put out, and I'm really excited to see what they do today. It's gonna be a great moment.
Well, I'm glad that that this chapter is closing, because it has been difficult the last few years to watch, and I think it's been actually kind of unfair to him, because he has lost a step. I'm glad that oftentimes he did not travel, but look, he is part of I should say class of people, or a group that has changed television. Lee Corso's record as a coach, not great. Dick Vitale's record as a coach, not great. Fran Fraschella's record as a coach. I'm talking about coaches who have gone on to a career in television that have had an impact on the game much better than it was when they were on the sidelines. And Lee Corso had the perfect personality. There have been a lot of those who have tried to copycat what he and Vitale have done, but I'm glad that he's getting one more opportunity, but I don't feel like ESPN's been fair to him over the years because of, he's lost the fastball a while ago. But look, they're honoring him, and Ohio State, I'm sure, is going to be wonderful and treat him well. I'm sure Ohio State will be the pick because it was the first pick. I doubt he'll go out the way he went out that show in Houston about 10, 15 years ago. Probably no firearms either, like in Stillwater. But look, he changed the TV game. In a way, he didn't change the game of football on the field, but he changed the TV game for ESPN, made it a staple. It's unfortunate that there haven't been many trips to Nebraska and attention from that show for the last 20 years or so. But good on him on a great career, and I hope he gets to enjoy a long life, long after his TV days are done.
Yeah, I mean that's a really great point. Probably worth the story at some time of both Vitale and Corso as kind of equivalents in their space, being mediocre head coaches. Because I think it does say something important of we lionize the coaches who win, right? And they get all the credit and all the plaudits, and that's all earned. But people like Corso and Vitale, I think, show that these people know a lot about the thing all of us here care about, and they can share that in ways that go beyond like just being a head coach. And it also kind of backs up the idea that being a coach is really hard, and it's kind of like alchemy, becoming a Tom Osborne or an Urban Meyer, whoever you want to choose in terms of guys that just won at a consistently high level.
Without being too melodramatic here, I do think without Lee Corso and without College Game Day, college football is not the sport that it is today. I think it's still big, but like they did a lot to grow the sport, I think. Just from a simple, even if you don't know what's going down today, you can tune in for 2 hours on a Saturday morning, hour and a half, whatever it may be, even if you just show up for the picks, and they will let you know a reason why you should watch damn near every single college football game today, why every single game is going to have something to for the neutral fan to tune in for.
And I think that's the ultimate testament to it. Like with so many other things, you don't need that. It doesn't provide the service it did in 1999, but people still watch it because it's part of the experience of college football.
Here's what I also hope, though, is that if as Corso retires, I would love for them to retire the guest picker segment. I don't care.
I liked Timothy Chalamet last year.
Okay, that's 1 out of 20, maybe 3 out of 20.
Depends who she is.
It just let's just do away with the guest picker segment too, and maybe I'll go back to watching that show. Okay.
I want Katy Perry every week. That was fun.
Brandon, before we get you out of here, I do want to ask if you were on College Game Day this morning and you're sitting there, you're the guest picker, and they give you, let's just say, they give you one game. They say, we pick your favorite game of the day. Give us your pick for that one. What is your favorite game? What is the one game you're most excited to see today?
Oh, I don't think I'd be too far off the beaten path because I'm really fascinated by the game of the day in Texas and Ohio State. Like, I like Texas in that game. I think Arch Manning is going to have an Arch Manning type of game, and it's going to get out of control quickly. And with just Ohio State, how much they've got to replace in the newness. I don't think Ohio State's not going to be in the game by any means, but like if they start 0-1, when's the last time that happened at Ohio State? So That one is rich with storylines, and I know it's the game of the week, the one that gets the most attention, but nothing else down the list has intrigued me more, and that's usually pretty unusual for me.
Brandon Vogel, counterread.com. Vogue's quick thought on Kentucky, Nebraska. Volleyball before we get you out, and what's happening with counter read.
Yeah,
Get your headgear ready.
Yeah, get
Kentucky's playing its first match of the season today. They're playing Lipscomb, which Nebraska dispatched easily last night. So you factor that in, like in what Nebraska has already shown. I think the Huskers will take care of things there. So Elijah, if you can do some video editing, there's my Herbie Husker head. But it'll be good to see Nebraska get another test. It'll be a pretty good atmosphere for sure. I'm excited to get down to downtown Nashville early tomorrow morning and see what that's all about. And yeah, we'll see what the Wildcats do today against Lipscomb. But I think they'll do something similar to what Nebraska did last night.
Brandon Vogel. Subscribe to Counterread, counterread.com. Him and Aaron Sorensen, amazing work with all things Big Red and of course, their in-game chat. Be a part of that. Vogues, we will get caught up. Thank you for joining us from your new vacation home because of your parlay winnings.
Yeah.
And,
all right, guys. Thank you.
There he is. Vogues is going to head out. Appreciate it. The Iron Horse back with us. Sharpie, it's good to see you these past few days, brother.
It was big thanks to all three of you. Got to see you after the game. Now your mom, by the way, was referenced yesterday while we were driving, or actually we were stuck in traffic coming back from Kansas City.
Okay.
I need the context.
I need context, please.
A person that was driving wanted the lowdown on Joe Mama.
Okay.
Wow.
Because because I transferred because for people that don't know, we kind of shared a similar location to do our post-game shows. And I had to forward your mom's phone number to somebody that was taking care of 1620 The Zone. Yeah.
Yes.
And so in your phone, your mother is Joe Mama. That's how that's how it was transferred to me. And so I sent it to Chris and he goes, "Is that her name?" And I go, "Yeah, that's the only way you're supposed to refer to as Joe Mama."
Yeah, it's been Joe Mama. That's the nickname my beloved father gave her many moons ago. So it's the Joe Mama mobile. How good was the RV? Now, what was funny is we're wrapping up Real Red Reaction on our side of the fence, and the frickin' RV drives away. Elijah and I look at each other and say, uh-oh, the RV's going one way, and here we are. God love you, Elijah, for the generator partner for packing that thing, and we into the night. It was just a really awesome setting. It was just fantastic, and all the Nebraska fans streaming out of Arrowhead in such a great mood. They're
were they
they were digging for their heart. They were in a good mood that they won, right? I mean, there was relief, but there's also the critique part. As the critique became real, there's the thought that win total may dial back a little bit. That there was that element to it as well, but they suffered too many of those situations going the wrong way, financial investment and all.
Yeah. Oh, it was. You know what? And I think you're going to see Nebraska participate in that event if it continues. I think sooner than later. I mean, maybe in 5 years. I think the Nebraska officials were like, "Wow, this is big time." Kansas City liked it. There's some logistical challenges on who was doing what. Because like the video presentation in stadium, a lot of people are upset about the ribbon boards not having stats. Where's the score? The NFL would not allow the Chiefs to use a lot of stuff they use on Sundays, like really? Graphics and information and stats. So the Chiefs took care of 90% of the event. Then there was like 8% that Cincinnati did. And then Nebraska had to come in and clean up the rest. Like they didn't know who was going to do stats. The Chiefs weren't going to take care of the stats. Cincinnati doesn't fly their stat crew, which makes sense. Kansas couldn't have a stat crew. So Nebraska had to bring down all of their stat crew. I mean, so, there's some like behind the scenes, but in terms of being there and the whole thing, I think it was fantastic for Nebraska fans. Now, the one thing that I know that Nebraska fans will complain about is what in the hell are you doing, state of Missouri, with your road construction? Okay? I mean, that was ridiculous. I know there were a gobsmack of people coming down from the south, but man, then I mean, do you really need to shut down when you know that there's going to be, 25, 30,000 cars coming from the state of Nebraska? Do you really need to shut down a lane to paint lines on that particular Thursday or Friday? Can you not wait until after the holiday?
Well,
But other than that, and the fact that the Platte City QT made more money than they've ever made in a 2-day span, it was good.
The thing is, though, are you not surprised with how our government tends to work? And this is not a political statement. This is just reality. If you've been to the DMV, you know what I'm talking about. That they didn't care. They didn't care there's 30,000 Husker fans coming down. They probably didn't even know. They're probably just like, all right, whatever. Let's get some work done before the holiday weekend. Oh, there's 30,000 cars coming.
I saw more I saw parts of Missouri that I'll never ever see in my lifetime that were off of 29 yesterday coming back. And we left Kansas City at about 11:30. And now we made good time. So we got back in Omaha like about 3. But there were twice where we got off at 29 and we're winding through parts of Missouri that you don't even have cell service. And you're like, man, I've seen this part of Missouri before. It was in the movie Deliverance. I mean, it was crazy.
Those were extras, not actors.
But did you guys were talking about it? I mean, there were some people coming down on Thursday that it took them like 5 hours from Omaha or Lincoln to get to Kansas City.
Bill Doleman?
my boys left at 11:30 to call the game and got there at 5:30. I left at 3 and took every back road I could find through the state of Kansas because, I'm familiar with it because with Kansas being a suburb of Fairbury, you're kind of used to, where it is that you can go. But I didn't hit an interstate until I hit 70. I came in from the side door, never took 435 or 29, and it took me 445. I shouldn't have told everybody what I did because now they'll do it when Nebraska shows up in 5 years. But I had a little help navigating, so it didn't take me 5 or 6 hours to get there. But I left at 3 and walked in at 7:45. Game time is on time, says Marvin Barnes.
That's the way to do it. The Iron Horse with us, Gary Sharp, Cranack en route up 29 for a football walkthrough. He may be joining us here, trying to reconnect in a bit. Good stuff from Brandon Vogel live from his Nashville country home. It's Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. Subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show. 1-0, Sharpie. There was the sense of relief, and then there's also, where's this team going to go? So it's a popular question from Matt Rule and company. And I have not had a chance to watch his latest podcast. I heard him a little bit as Elijah and I were driving back between listening to the McAfee hit he did yesterday and the Rulo Murder Barn option is Elijah's like, hey, do you want to go check out the Murder Barn? It's like, no, I'm good, partner.
It's a good podcast.
The True Crime podcast.
The stat stories. Don't have a big dinner before that one. You're gonna want to throw up.
But what's next for Nebraska, Sharpie? That's what I'm going to pose to you.
Well, I think So we wanted to be wowed and have a win, right? On Thursday night. And we didn't get wowed, and we sometimes forget about they won. Because in the past they would lose games like this, and Sorsby's pass wouldn't be underthrown, and Cincinnati would move right down the field, and maybe they kick a field goal, they win in overtime. We know Nebraska struggles in overtime. So in the past they would not have won a game like that where they were the better team. They were the better team, and the stats were lopsided, but it could have been, they found a way to win. Now, I think we need to raise our standards. that you can't just go, oh, man, they won. Hey, don't be a negative Nancy, because they won and they have some things to work on. They also have some positives. I said 9-3 on my show on Thursday. I'm not backing away from that. I think my expectations for the first game were too high. And I get the sense, guys, that Nebraska was relieved because they're 1-0 and they get to be 1-0 all weekend. Okay. Instead of people just crapping on Nebraska about losing another one-score game to begin the year, Nebraska is 1-0 and you move on. You hope that you don't reference this game very often to go, oh, man, we should have seen it coming. Look at Cincinnati. Nobody ever did that with Oregon. They didn't go, oh, we saw that Idaho game. We should have seen this coming. So you try and distance yourself, and the game one is just an outlier, and you get better as the season goes along. But I'm still a nine-win person. I think they can find a way to win 9 games. There were things that I saw in the game that are positive. There are things that I was concerned about or that are still a concern, if you know where I'm going here. But they're 1-0 and they have some things to work on. And now you're on to Akron and, whatever comes with a team that got shut out by Wyoming 10-0 the other night.
Well, the two big concerns, it feels like, coming out of this one, Gary, are the defensive line being able to stop the run, which I also think the linebackers play into that just a little bit. Upon my rewatch, the D-line didn't do a great job keeping the O-line off of the defensive linebackers, but the backers also ran themselves out of some plays at times and let Cincinnati have some cutback lanes. So that's one concern. The other one is the depth behind Emmett Johnson. That's a big concern whenever you have, was it 3 or 4 touches for a grand total of 0 yards from guys in the running back room not named Emmett Johnson. When you look at those two, if you had to circle one, which do you think is possibly more of an overreaction to game one, and which one's a real concern moving forward?
Defensive line. So I think here's what happened. And you're right, Elijah. By the way, man, did they leave Watson Trent like in Lincoln when they went to play in Kansas City? He's undersized, and it showed up on Thursday night. Thank God Vincent Shavers was there. Vincent Shavers graded out as their best defensive player, and I've said by the end of the year, he'll be the second best player in this program. I mean, he almost put a Cincinnati guy into sleep that, the guy would never wake up and want Skyline chili again. But he was a baller. Hey, Donovan Jones and Vincent Shavers, man, them are hit stickers. The defensive line, if you're saying overreaction, so they're trying some things different with the defensive line, and I think they got caught in some formations of what the defensive line is trying to do that were not conducive to them, and they got pushed around. And the linebackers, you're right, did not have a great night outside of V9. I am worried that Cincinnati was able to run the ball straight ahead. That's a problem. If Cincinnati would have ran the ball with a bunch of window dressing and pulling guards and stuff, you could say, okay, but they ran the ball straight ahead. Nebraska guys, didn't it just appear that Nebraska was in constant rotation every down with their defensive linemen, which we haven't seen in the past. And, I wonder if that had anything to do with it. I don't think George was very good. Riley Van Poppel only played 20 snaps. They need more consistency out of him. I didn't think Elijah Judy was that good. I know that he can be better, but they were just rotating guys, where you didn't get Winery and Lenhart together, which I really liked, or Keona Davis with those guys who I thought he played well. I don't know. It was kind of a disjointed night on the defensive line, but they got saved, guys, because that defensive backfield, outside of the holding call, I thought they were pretty flawless. I thought they really played well on the back end. And that's one of the areas where you're like, they're more experienced. They will play well. So there were things Thursday night. There was nothing, I don't think anything new that popped up and you went, oh my gosh, that's something to add to the list. I think defensive line, as you referred to, Elijah, and who's going to be a consistent backup to Emmett are things that we had a concern. And unfortunately, they're probably still a concern going into week 2.
So you're saying neither are overreactions?
Well, fair. So running back, there's no way that Emmett can have 32 touches a game again. I mean, you're just going to run him into the ground because he's the first time he's been a frontline guy. Mekhi Nelson surprised me. I thought they pulled the ripcord on him when he was there was a passing down and he went to block and he got blown up and they're like, 15's too valuable. Come next to me. I've said this from the jump. Mosey's trying to learn how to play college running back as a wide receiver. That's not easy. I think he thought too much on his pass route and his run. But you're right, Elijah. You can't have Bonner and Harburg have more combined carries than your backup running backs. So they've got to find a way to work in Mekhi Nelson and then let him just run. Let him do what he can do, because they can't have Emmett Johnson. I mean, Emmett Johnson will run out of gas by November if he's out there as much as he was.
Next 2 weeks are for that. Mekhi Nelson, get some confidence, get better, and kind of get into the flow of what you need to be for this football team into Big Ten play. I mean, that's really the training ground.
Along those lines with the running back, Mekhi Nelson is going to be much more of a runner, whereas Mosey is going to be the versatile back. So when Mosey's in there, he's going to probably be like Ramir Johnson. Can carry the ball, but is probably going to be the one that is the safety valve in the passing game, or the design back out of the backfield in the passing game. I don't see that with Mekhi Nelson. So I think in the next couple of games, you're going to see both of those guys settle into those roles, much more limited for EJ. And Mosey will get a lot more snaps, and Mekhi Nelson will get a lot more snaps. And what happens behind them, I don't know. But I think that Mosey is your Ramir Johnson replacement in that game, because he can catch the passes. Going back to the defensive line real quick, this was also the first game for Terry Braden as a defensive line coach. And Nebraska's approach to defensive line coaching and style of play is much different this year than it was under Terrence Knight in the last 2 years. Knight was very much emotional and physical. Get the guys lathered up into a froth and tell them just go hit the guy with the ball. It was pretty simplistic. So my understanding that with Terry Braden coming in with his NFL pedigree as a coach, and not the main coach, but just a defensive line coach in Kansas City, that he has brought a much more technical, much more mental approach to the position than what those guys have been used to the last 2 years. So while Cincinnati, and I've talked about, I'm concerned that they're getting 8 yards per carry in the second half. That's problematic. But you also have a coach and a group of players getting used to what it's being the guy, the coach of that position. And you've got guys who are getting accustomed and acclimated to how he coaches that position and what the rotations are going to be. So as much as I'm concerned about it, I will give that bit of grace to the final grade of how the defensive line played. But if it's 8 yards per carry in the second half by Cincinnati, it's going to be worse against Big Ten teams who will do the same thing if they don't make the adjustments to how Braden wants them coached and they do their assignments well.
The Average Joe Weekend Edition here, and find and like and subscribe. Sunday Live tomorrow at 10:30 for more football fun this holiday weekend. Guys, want to get your take on just the stage. We talked a lot about that with Nebraska, the stage Thursday night, and what Nebraska was able to do, and that's be on the right side of the win column for sure. But I think today, as things continue to heat up and the back and forth is a reality between the SEC and the Big Ten for supremacy, you've got some, and then there's these other playoff spots that you're all jockeying for. Big opportunity for the SEC. What's the ACC, what's the SEC made of with their slate today? We got some monster matchups. Of course, LSU and Clemson, Bama, Florida State, Texas, Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Miami. First impression Saturday. That's kind of how I see things. We've talked a lot here the last 48 hours about our first impressions of Nebraska and where they can go. But too soon to put a lot of reaction or weight on this weekend. I mean, it's a great non-conference crisscross that we get, and we pray we get more of them as in future years.
I think
game one or kind of.
It depends. I think it depends on who you
Saturday. Are. Okay.
I think it depends on who you are. Like, will a loss in one of those bigger games today knock you out of the playoff? Probably not if you have the kind of season you think you're going to have. But it changes kind of the narrative. Like, what if Brian Kelly loses again? They've never won a season opener at LSU under him.
No,
and good for LSU. Yeah, good on LSU. They usually play a really good name opponent to open up the season, usually a ranked team. but he's never won an opener, and now he plays at Clemson, which, I think Clemson has a chance to win a national championship. What if they lose? The narrative on him. There will always be a narrative when he wakes up and goes to bed on Arch Manning throughout his entire career at Texas. What if he wins in the shoe today? What if Ohio State wins? It's kind of you talk about it because we love the sport, but how much will carry over from today? That's the thing in this new age of college football. And I thought about this a lot, kind of under the microscope of Nebraska. Week ones are really tricky because the tackling, the special teams, the turnovers. By the way, I don't think people make enough about Nebraska was +2. Now, they could have had a pick six the other way. They could have had a Raiola fumble, but at the end of the day, they were +2. Is in this portal era where rosters are changing so much, we think we know what's going to happen week one, but we really don't know because teams aren't established and they don't know. College football doesn't have an exhibition game. What if Nebraska would have had an exhibition game before Cincinnati on Thursday night? Some of these things that popped up, they would have been like, okay, we got a week to work on them. So I think week one in college football, and I think this is the greatest week one of college football in my lifetime. We don't know because the rosters are playing together for the first time with so much movement now in the game.
How they approach the Texas-Ohio State game, and I mean the coaches, you don't throw all your cards on the table. Well, I hate cliches, but you don't do that in week one ordinarily. I'm sure that Matt Rule, Dana Holgerson, John Butler all have, and Mike Eckler all have cards still in the pocket left to be played, especially once they get toward conference season. But if you are Texas and Oklahoma, you lose the game, you're not out of the playoff picture whatsoever. But is everything out there and ready to go? Is it that imperative that you have to win that game? I mean, Texas is number one, but, Ohio State, again, both those teams are going to be in the playoff. But so how much do you throw out there? How much do you expose yourself for the rest of the season when you do have the heart of the conference, well, all of the conference coming up, in just a couple of weeks?
You're carrying the flag for your conference. Whatever, my approach would be whatever the hell it takes to win. And if they see something on film, great. We'll still run it against you, Michigan or Michigan State or Penn State. You still got to stop it. That would be my approach. Just whatever it takes to win. Because, I mean, think if you don't go, and it's a tough ask, but think if you don't go get it done if you're Texas. I mean, that's some blood in the water for the rest of the SEC, who's probably a little pissed anyway that you've come in and done so well in year one from your past conference. And listen, Arch has played in 20 games, so he has had incredible mentorship, and it's just kind of family tradition that you are thrust into the spotlight and you go perform. And
what if he doesn't?
Well, I don't think it's going to be because of nerves or boneheaded plays. Like if Arch doesn't have a good game today, a lot of that's going to have to do with the Texas offensive line and that Ohio State defense. I mean, he isn't going to be the problem. He just needs help. And with all the help Texas has on offense, they should be there for him.
And are there not concerns in your eyes with the Ohio State defense? I know they have a boatload of talent, but that Ohio State defense didn't flip until a couple years ago. They were the issue under Ryan Day. You could always go put up a whole bunch of yardage, but that Ohio State defense kind of had this soft mantra that kind of followed them around. They bring in Jim Knowles. He kind of brings that defense together. Now Knowles is off to Penn State. You lose a lot of talent in your front seven. I mean, I still think you have the best defensive player in the Big Ten in the back end, which helps you. But, are there concerns in your eyes with Ohio State being able to maintain what they did defensively over the last 2 years?
Oh,
yes.
Big time, because of who you lost it, to your point, as coordinator, and you're having to just constantly reload in a portal era. So either what you've recruited or what you've bought better be as good as what you just had, and that's not always the reality. But I love the stage. And I remember the Vince Young game about 20 years ago. That was Texas's launching pad when they went and finally got their national championship, much to the chagrin of Nebraska fans. They won in Columbus, but I don't want these matchups to go away. And it sounds like with the conference schedule mandate from the SEC, we may have some more lines of communication for future Power 4 matchups like today, or at least in week 3, like we used to get them for Nebraska. Pressure. Go ahead.
Well, also in season openers, Nebraska had a good one against Cincinnati. You want to have tests like that. You want to play a Cincinnati. You want to test yourself against a Clemson or a quality opponent like Jacksonville State to know exactly where your program is at this stage of the season. Of course, I speak of Central Florida, and it's win over Jacksonville State as it got a real test, and it's the debut of its new head coach.
Pressure cooker, Florida State, Bama. Who's walking home? Who's riding home?
Florida, Alabama, is that today or is that tomorrow? Is that today?
Yeah.
Alabama, Florida State's afternoon, midday.
Your triple header, Billy D, is, and you'll be at Marty Bird's. I mean, it'll be okay. You'll have a lot of TVs to pick from, and a casino to put a bet down. You got Ohio State, Texas here at 11. You got Florida State, Bama at 2:30. Then you have Clemson, LSU at 6:30. Find some wings and get some beer.
No, done and done already.
Oh, you're skipping right over Oregon and Montana State. Not gonna have that one on television.
Yeah, the Yellowstone Bowl. I'm okay.
I'm with Gary. This is one of the great weekends that I can remember for big time matchups. Now, you go back to week 0 for Kansas State and Iowa State. I do think that was a playoff play-in game, or at least for consideration. Mm-hmm. But for some of these matchups, LSU and Clemson, probably the loser is still in contention for the playoff conversation. Florida State has to bounce back after last year's demoralizing, setback to Georgia Tech and the hangover from the bowl snub, the playoff snub the year before. They've got to have a great showing. If Alabama boat races Florida State, Mike Norvell his program is going to unravel. They've got to have a good showing. But this is a great weekend of college football to start the season. But Alabama, Florida State is certainly intriguing for the future of Florida State.
Any predictions by either of the Iron Horse or the Pride of Fairbury? We did our predictions yesterday.
On games on the weekend?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You got a lot.
What is it? 13, 30, 12, 35 plus years ago, we don't have the same enthusiasm for Notre Dame, Miami. Catholics versus the convicts.
I forgot that one, and I shouldn't have forgotten it because I think I can't wait to watch that tomorrow.
Tomorrow night. It's in the middle of my fantasy draft. We're gonna have that on TV.
I think. Don't you guys think? Like I love that we're doing 5 days of football, and we have 91 football games, and it makes you realize that. And I'm glad that Nebraska actually played on a Thursday because we were able to watch Colorado last night and Georgia Tech and then Auburn and Baylor and Jackson Arnold. All he had to do was get away from OU. And then the games today, tomorrow, and then we get Chapel Bill on Monday night. I think that Sunday night game is the best time slot of the weekend because everybody is like either at the lake house, they're chilling, they still got another day, usually for work the next day. So you just want to watch a game. And that's the game that is right there. And we get Miami, Notre Dame. I love that time slot. But again, good for everybody across football that are playing this weekend that we have some really, really great matchups that matter. And in this case, I'm glad Nebraska played on Thursday because we get to sit back and watch.
For sure. We have an average Joe. Hi, Gertie. You need to go out. These bastards need to go out. I'll be right back. All right, this is my thought. You've got, we are the king of road trips, and we've had a great time over the years doing them.
And you actually won one.
I know. AZ, Husker, tell us more about going down to Clancy's at Scottsdale.
Well, Clancy's, that's the Husker bar down there.
I have heard that, but I've never been. I've never been down to that part of it. At least when I was legal to drink.
I'm still trying to formulate this average Joe road show to Penn State. That's what I'm trying to work on.
I think we could get a bunch of us and load up and go. I know our old buddy Mitch Sherman would be a part of that because he got the RV tour when he popped by on Thursday, and I know Mitch would go to Happy Valley. Do we jack with that though in November?
No.
I mean, Sharp,
That
you've
is a-
been there because it's a
Yeah,
death trap, isn't it? One
Well,
road.
it's tough to get there, and I think that's going to be a night game, and you never know about the weather. I mean,
Yeah.
I drove back from State College to Harrisburg, and I have no idea how we got there because I don't think once we saw the road because it was like blizzard conditions, and it's 2-lane highway as you weave your way up through the mountains and these small towns where you drive by every town, and they've got the old man and the woman they got the statue of them bending over in the garden right next to Paterno. Yeah. Like everything. No, like the first time I went up to State College, you would drive by these homesteads. Everybody had a Paterno, like on their mailbox or whatever. It's also those fans get after you a little bit. I mean, the visiting team and their fans are kind of sitting ducks there. But if that game means something, I'm all for it.
Okay.
I think I'm going to wait to lock in that trip until after I see what happens on September 20th. But
Mark Spindler did say to let him know. I mean, we'll have protection.
Security?
Yes. Spindler's in, and that's kind of his stomping ground. So,
if you have Mark Spindler and a firearm, you should be pretty safe.
I mean, we just need Mark.
That guy's a rock star. That guy,
he's fun.
That guy is great radio. Son's a great player. I wish he had another couple of years at Nebraska because
he's coming I think he is RSVP to the Single Barrel next Saturday.
But before we get out of here, though, we need to talk about the offensive line and the left tackle position. Now that we kind of get into Spindler and the offensive line.
Back to football. Thank
you.
you.
Back to football here.
And the offensive line.
Upon my rewatch, I still think that Elijah Pritchett was probably your best overall left tackle. But Gatula had himself an all right game. I still think Corcoran looks really uncomfortable in space, which you need to be at the left tackle position. I think he looked a lot more comfortable at guard. So I think it might be a 2-horse race right now. But I thought both Pritchett and Gatula, I don't think either of them had their best games, but I think you'd feel comfortable with each of them no matter who ends up winning that left tackle job. But it's still up in the air to me between those two guys right now.
Here's what I would be comfortable with. Inside the 5, Gunnar Gatula, go in there and don't move. We'll just run it straight ahead. Okay. That's all we need. We don't need a pre-snap penalty from $1 million left tackle. That's inexcusable that happened. It changed the game, that penalty. So if it was razor thin as to or in the first depth chart as to who the starter was and who's number 3, yes, Pritchett played perhaps better than any other offensive lineman. But one play changed the entire game. One penalty changed the entire game. So if you got to take him out first and goal at the 5 or the 1, then you do it and say, sorry, son, we can't back up because 5 in Nebraska in the red zone, Nebraska in the really red zone, 10 yards in, has been pretty inept for the last several years.
And I know you got to score from the 1, like you can't be backed up, but to be fair, like it's not a Pritchett thing whenever your offense as a whole can't punch it in from the 6. You should still be expected to
I 100% agree with that. When Nebraska gets to the red zone and the field shortens up and the passing game and all, it's that way for everybody. But it should be a given if you have the ball inside the 5 that you're going to score a touchdown, especially if you can run the ball with a good offensive line. That should just be a given in football. But to back up and Lindenmeyer had one of the best plays of the game to get down there. It was one of the longest pass plays of the game, as I recall, for Nebraska, yards after catch and whatnot.
19
but
yards.
If you cannot stay in your stance on what's probably going to be a push into the end zone on a couple plays, you can play 95 yards, but you're not going to play inside the 5.
Let's just talk sequence for 2 seconds, okay? Nebraska's got the 8-yard pass. You get Lindenmeyer on 3rd and 5, another third down conversion. Nebraska was money on their third downs. for a good stretch of that ball game. So you got it 1st and goal at the 1. You got the Pritchett penalty. Then you run Emmett, runs for a yard to the Cincy 4 after the penalty. And then you go fade route from the 4. All right. So the fade route, there's a lot of grumbling when the fade routes don't work. And then you get pressured where Dylan's got a little time, and then he's got to move around a little bit, and he tried to get Harburg in the end zone, put the ball in a spot, but it was a tough catch. A lot of traffic there, and then you're forced for the 3. But you have 8 minutes burned off the clock. It's a 16-play drive, and you're left with 13. You're left with a 6-3 score. Good thing Vincent Shavers decided to murder somebody over the middle, and you get that. You get that forced fumble.
And my point is, an 8-minute drive that was a demoralizing drive for Cincinnati. They were getting paper cutted all the way down the field. It was a perfect drive by Nebraska, but at the end of it, because of the penalty, it's Nebraska that's left demoralized because they should have gotten a touchdown out of it. And then all of a sudden you start seeing that pen go to paper, the script starts to be written again, and sure enough, it almost cost them at the end if Hartzog doesn't make the play. But if you cannot score from the 5-yard line, and 2 of your passes are passes, and Nebraska's not been good throwing the ball in the red zone and certainly inside the 10. Now, I know Key got the touchdown on 4th down. I get it. But more often than not, Nebraska doesn't score from inside the 5, score touchdowns.
And I looked at the play calling from that 6-yard line where it was very predictable 1st down, inside handoff to Emmett Johnson. Second play was a fade route to the end zone to Isaiah Hunter. And the third one was kind of a mesh concept over the middle of the field where you had some crossing routes, and Dylan Ryla stepped up and really made an all right throw given that coverage was blanketed on the wide receivers, who I don't think did a great job on that play. But I wasn't a huge fan of the play calling there from the 6 because the first 2, and we could really even argue the third play, all felt very, very predictable.
Yeah. I agree with that.
But then again, look at the touchdown to Key on the 3rd and 4th down, which I think was pure Dana. You know, they ran the same play on back-to-back plays. That 3rd down, Key was actually open on the same slant, and they saw that, and they're like, we're running this again. So back to the offensive line. Nebraska is best when they are running forward. I thought Emmett danced way too much. Now, he got some hard yards, and, he'd go from a drop pass in the flat to then he'd rip off an 11-yard run. But Nebraska is better running forward. I thought Teddy was solid. We don't really talk about Teddy. And I think Teddy played almost every snap. Yeah, I think he played really, really well. Now, the left side, that was a planned rotation for the first 3 series to have 3 guys, and they rotated 5 times. Let's first start with Turner Corcoran. Turner Corcoran, that experiment at tackle needs to end. Put him at guard, find a way to get him on the field when you can use him and you think he'll be most valuable, but I can't have him playing tackle.
Well, let him be like an extra offensive lineman that comes in and on one.
Maybe that's a great point, Elijah. Maybe like they used Mazuka last year, when he kind of lost his spot.
Yep.
Gatula was solid. I thought Pritchett was their best offensive lineman when he wasn't screwing up.
Yep.
He basically by his head coach got Anthony granted. You remember 2 years ago when before the first game against Minnesota, Rule talked to why Anthony Grant's not going to get on the field because he fumbles. What happens against Minnesota? Look at what Rule said about Pritchett in camp, and then that happens. There was maybe one other play where he struggled a little bit in pass pro, but he's a mauler. Man, if you can get him on a consistent basis, I think you got to have him on the field. And maybe if he's not on the field replacing Gatula as a starter, he is that extra blocker like they used Mazuka last year.
They've got some options there for sure. And you still
and I thought they were flip of what I thought. So they were really good pass pro on Thursday night. They weren't as great run blocking, but I think Nebraska didn't do a lot of forward downhill running, which I think when they did, Emmett looked really good instead of dancing and trying to get outside and everything else they were doing. I mean, it was kind of a hodgepodge of offense. And I said this yesterday on my show. Cincinnati, the way they play defense, said, Nebraska, the phone booth door is open. I know every kid in your program hasn't seen a phone booth except in movies. Come on inside. I thought Nebraska said, okay, we'll play that style instead of trying to break Cincinnati. So some of the things they did on offense, I want to see against a team that doesn't run that 3-high safety look that Cincinnati does that says, hey, we're just going to keep everything in front of you. But the offensive line wasn't like in shambles. I thought the interior guys were good again.
Yeah, and I thought they were good. I thought Corleone was a load, but he's going to be a load for probably every single offensive lineman he faces this season. So might not be the best representative for what Nebraska's interior offensive line is, because at times he gave them some fits, but he's a future first or second round draft pick for a reason. I will say, and I want to make sure this is clear, like I was impressed by what Pritchett put together aside from the mental mistakes. But I still think Gunnar Gatula is a guy that if he's your starting left tackle, you feel comfortable with it. That battle will probably continue to go because I think Pritchett more of a mauler in the run game, but Gatula is a well-rounded tackle. I think he's a solid pass protector. I think he's a solid run blocker, not the driving force that you'd like to have at the left tackle spot from a run blocking perspective, and that's what Pritchett really has going for him. But I think with whoever ends up being that left tackle, if Pritchett can cut the mental mistakes, he's going to be great. If he can't, and Gatula's your guy, you know what? I think you as Nebraska can be very comfortable with him as your guy at left tackle because he's a steady force. Might not be like a future top 60 draft pick like I feel Pritchett could be, but he's still a solid force for you.
All right, fellas, enjoy your weekend. Hunker down for some college football.
My ship has come in somewhere down there.
Bill is kicking it Marty Bird style. Love it.
At the Crystal Springs of Missouri.
Are you going to the casino tonight or no?
Down here?
Yeah.
Probably not. I think a lot of guys have the casino on their phone. And given the price we're paying for this place, we'll probably, gather around the TV and watch with extra interest the games that will be taking place tonight. But, yeah, the ship has come in. The killer bees are back. Time to get on the lake.
I like it. All right, Billy D. Elijah, appreciate you, brother. Thanks, man. Sharpie, you're awesome, brother. Thanks for jumping on. And we'll get ready to rock and roll Sunday live tomorrow, 10:30. And a great day of college football. Chris Schmidt, we'll talk to you next time with the Average Joe Sports Show. Like and subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, Google Play the Pod, AJ Sports Radio. And back tomorrow at 10:30. Enjoy football.
Godspeed.
Thanks, guys.
There we go. Hey, appreciate y'all. We'll holler manana.
All right.
See you, gentlemen.
See you guys. Bye.
I will hopefully I'll be able to I'm completely blinded by the sun.